Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. I'm joined by Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins as we complete our work for the 2025 Westchester County budget today with the signing of the budget into law. We had a budget process that began back in the summertime as various department heads put together estimates to present to our operations team headed by Joan McDonald, our Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman, our Deputy Director of Operations, as they started to look ahead to what they would need in 2025 to run the various departments of county government. We moved then into having a public forum in early October before the budget was presented to the Board of Legislators. In mid-October, we presented the capital budget to the Board of Legislators, and then in early November, we presented the operating budget for their review. Members of the Board of Legislators, led by Chairman Vedat Ghashi, are here with us today, and they went through a very deliberative process with public hearings and a host of different public meetings, scrutinizing the elements of the budget, bringing in commissioners of different departments to defend and explain different allocations of money. There were different additions made by the Board of Legislators to the budget. We worked through those negotiations, modified the budget by mutual agreement, involved all the members of the board in those discussions, and just early this week, on Monday, December 9th, they met and deliberated and came to final closure on the budget, voting for the budget. We now have the budget before us to sign into law. We're going to go through some of the different elements of it as we go forward. I'm going to ask Ken Jenkins to cover some of the key operating details of some of the different departments. And then I want to talk about an important issue that's come up in dialogue, and that is the special districts that are an addition to the general fund budget. Let me try to explain it, put it into some perspective for you so you can evaluate the actions that we've taken, and then I will go ahead and sign the budget into law. But first, Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive, to go over some of the highlights of the operating budget that we have for the year 2025. Ken.
Thanks, George. This 2025 budget highlights our administration's continued commitment to meeting community needs without adding to the tax burden. Through strategic investments, we are addressing housing, safety, health, and economic development while safeguarding our fiscal integrity. This budget reflects Westchester County's strong financial standing, backed by high credit ratings from Fitch, which is AAA, Standard & Poor's Global Ratings, AA+ with a positive outlook, and Moody's, AA1 stable. Our key fiscal strategies include preparing adequately for our labor contracts, avoiding borrowing for operating expenses, refraining from using our fund balance reserves, maintaining our cash flow, again, without borrowing. The 2025 budget dedicates $50 million for affordable housing development and establishes the new Office of Housing Counsel to support legal services and eviction diversion. Additional funding supports housing subsidies, eviction prevention programs, and flood mitigation efforts. Public safety and our security. A record $303 million has been allocated for public safety, with funding for $78 million for our county police department, $161 million for the Department of Correction, $46 million for our Department of Probation, and $18 million for emergency services. The budget also continues support for 308 sworn police officers, the HERO Recruitment and Retention Program for emergency services personnel, and it also includes new correction officer classes to reduce overtime. The county is expanding our mental health services with the new outpatient services clinic here in White Plains for ongoing behavioral health programs like Project Alliance, and other investments include community vaccination clinics, telehealth services for seniors, and maternal mortality initiatives that continue on. From economic development, Westchester County's economic growth is going to continue to be bolstered by programs supporting MWBEs, SVDOBs, local entrepreneurs, the biosciences, and clean energy workforce development. Our Office of Tourism and Film continues to promote the county's attractions, creating jobs and increasing revenues. For environmental initiatives, we continue programs like our EV charging grants for municipalities, compost giveaways, expanding recycling efforts throughout Westchester County, and technical assistance for climate resiliency planning. Our child care and food security was something that was very important for our Board of Legislators to continue. The county is increasing its child care subsidies by $24 million to a total of $80 million and maintaining funding for food pantries to address food insecurity. These are some of the highlights of the 2025 budget. Back to you, George.
Now, the budget, as we talk about it as a singular document, has different component parts to it. And I think it's important to understand that because you're hearing some dialogue in the press, somewhat in the community, about the role of special districts. So let me try to put this in some perspective, if you don't mind. The general fund for Westchester County is the portion of the budget, the operating portion of the budget, that funds all of the different operating departments. Ken just went through some of the highlights based on some policy areas. But it's within that general budget of $2.5 billion that we fund our Westchester County Department of Public Safety, which is our county police, our Department of Corrections, which is where we have our penitentiary and our county jail, our Department of Probation, Department of Health, Department of Mental Health, Parks, Recreation, and so forth. In that general fund budget, there are different revenue streams, one of which is property taxes. And it is the property tax revenue stream that we have held stable now for the last 2 years. We have not raised general fund county property taxes over the last 2 years. In the 4 prior years, we cut the general fund property tax levy. So for the last 6 years, there's been no increase in general fund property taxes, and in fact, a decrease. You have less taxation, general fund taxation today than you had 6 years ago today, and that's a fact. Now, what does that represent? That $2.5 billion general fund is roughly 90% of all of the elements that are dealt with in this budget. There are special districts that fall into 3 categories that make up the remaining 10%. $89 million for our refuse district. That is a singular district that includes most, but not all, of Westchester County's municipalities. Various sewer districts, which total $155 million, and those sewer districts are based on different geographic combinations. It generally follows the flow of rivers by which we take our refuse, take our water sewage, and we put them into sewer treatment plants, 7 of them around Westchester County, and treat them before we put them out into either the Long Island Sound or into the Hudson River. And then $26 million for various water districts. But it's important to know that when you look at all of this stuff, what is the aggregate impact of those special districts? It's roughly 10% of the totality of the money that's spent in county government. If you put it all together, it's about a $2.8 billion operation. $2.5 billion of it is in the general fund, 90% of it, 10% of it in the special district. What's also important to know is that not every resident of Westchester County is in a special district. Those special district targeted services, refuse, sewerage, and water, are in certain parts of the county, but not universal. If you are a resident of Bedford, if you're a resident of North Salem, if you're a resident of Pound Ridge, if you're a resident of Lewisboro, you are not part of any special district. When you pay county property taxes, all you have to be concerned about is the county property tax itself. When you look at some of the other of those special districts, we have a number of water districts in Westchester County, but the water districts that are included in this budget do not include New Rochelle, they do not include Peekskill, Rye City, Rybrook, Portchester, Ossining, Pelham, and a host of other communities where different utilities provide water not provided through the county. So whatever increase there is in the water district's budget is no impact to the people who live in New Rochelle, Peekskill, Rye, Rybrook, Portchester, and so forth. We have sewer districts that cover a large portion of the county, but they don't cover the totality of the county, and in some cases, they cover parts of communities. I've mentioned already that 4 communities are not at all in the sewer districts: North Salem, Lewisboro, Pound Ridge, and Bedford. Most of North Castle is not in a sewer district. The hamlets of Armonk and Banksville are not part of a sewer district. Most of Somers, with a small exception along Route 6, is not part of a sewer district. Most of Yorktown, the southern 2/3 of Yorktown are not part of a sewer district. The village of Buchanan, the hamlet of Verplank, the hamlet of Montrose, not part of a sewer district. So when someone says, well, the special district costs are going up, they don't apply to those communities I've just mentioned. And it is true that those services are provided in other ways in those communities, but the impact of the decisions that were made this week by the Board of Legislators and what we're signing into law are not funded for those services in those communities. So they are not impacted by whatever changes we make in those special districts. If the special districts in general represent about 10% of the total of all of this, what does that mean in real-world terms to you? If you live in what I would call an average house in Westchester, and there's no average house, there's a wide range of properties, and depending on where you live will depend on the assessment roll in that community. There's a state equalization rate that applies that tries to equalize what a house in Bronxville looks like and represents in wealth to the exact same similar house if we're in the city of Mount Vernon. That's a very hard process to equalize, but the state does that process, and it changes the value and the impact of taxation from community to community. But in general, if you're in an average home and you pay $3,000 in your county property tax bill, you'll know by the end of the year, you'll get either a printout if you're paying a mortgage, you'll get a printout from your municipality, it'll show you your city, your school district taxes, your county taxes, then if you're in any special district, what the totality of taxes you paid that year is, or you will see that as part of your normal mortgage payment, and your mortgage company will inform them how much of your taxes that you paid. That's part of your filing your annual taxes on April 15th. But if you pay $3,000 and you're in these different special districts, you probably pay in the aggregate about $300 in the special districts. So if we have frozen, which we have, the general fund money, that means the $3,000 you pay has not gone up. It's still only $3,000. That's the much larger amount. The smaller amount of $300 has gone up in a range where at the low end you would pay $15 more a year for the impact of all of those special districts, if you're in the district. The high end of that impact, probably maybe $20 on the low end. The high end impact, $50 more a year. So when someone says the special districts are going up, what does that mean? It means a very small impact on your budget. And when you consider, if you're making a mortgage payment, you're making a monthly payment, whatever increase there may be, you divide that out by the 12 months of the year. A $20 increase over the course of 12 months is less than $2 a month. A $50, which is the high-end increase that's been estimated for a person in a special district, a $50 increase is $4 more a month that you're paying. Your basic property tax bill for the county hasn't changed, and you might have as much as a $4 a month increase to the special districts. Why is that? Because each special district, particularly the sewer districts, have different assets. The level of improvement that's needed in the Yonkers wastewater treatment plant, its size, its scope, its service level, is completely different from the Blind Brook wastewater treatment plant located in the city of Rye. If you live in Rye Brook, or most of the section of Rye, a small section of Harrison or Mamaroneck, your sewage is treated by the Blind Brook sewer treatment plant. If you live in Yonkers and along the Sawmill River corridor, which will take you up into northern Westchester in the area of Chappaqua, your sewage goes through the Yonkers wastewater treatment plant. It's different for everyone, and this system was created years ago. What we've tried to do overall, over the course of these last 6 years, is to try to do everything we can to keep your property taxes down, and that's what this budget has done. It is frozen for the last 2 years, reduced over the prior 4 years, over these 6 years. And we have, to the greater extent, kept the special district costs down as well. We've had some increase this year, but when you look at the absolute number of dollars of it, it's a very small amount. Somewhere between $20 to $50 for that portion of the population that are in those districts, and I've just indicated how many people, how many communities are not in those districts. So it's important for you to understand this. It is details that are in the weeds, but you have a choice. And the choice is you look at a set of factors and you understand them, and you know what it represents, or you take information that you get off the internet, unvetted, and you let that draw your judgment as to what we've done. This is a complicated budget. It takes a lot of very intelligent people to work very hard over a long period of time. We owe a debt of gratitude to Joan McDonald, our Director of Operations, to Emily Saltzman, our Deputy Director of Operations, to Larry Sewell, our Budget Director, and as part of the process, Karen Hablow, who's our Finance Director. Every single commissioner of every single department, many of whom worked for county government before my administration began, have contributed their professional experience in doing this. Consider that the county budget is completed now, adopted by the board, soon to be signed into law, on time, balanced, and will undergo any scrutiny that comes from state control or any other source and from the bond rating agencies based in Wall Street. And they will look at these decisions and say, these were sound business decisions. These weren't political decisions made to satisfy the need of the moment. Because I assure you, a year from today, you'll want the same result in taxes, and you want the same result the year after that. Very hard to do. You see the way costs have risen in your life. They've risen in running a county government and the complexity of doing the things that we do, from running parks to running sewer treatment plants. Very complicated level of government. But this budget is on time, it's balanced, and to the greater extent, it freezes your property taxes for the 6th straight year. That's an accomplishment. I want to thank the Board of Legislators for their work and the scrutiny of it. We're never all of one mind about these things, but we have an open dialogue. We don't look for unanimity, but what we do look for is engagement, and we've had that with the Board of Legislators as they've gone through their scrutiny. Let me invite the Chair of the Board of Legislators, Vedat Gashi, to join us for a few of his comments, and then we're also joined by Legislator Jewel Williams-Johnson, who chairs the Budget and Appropriations Committee. They carry the heavy lifting here, and also Legislator Erica Pierce has joined us as well. So I'm going to invite Chairman Gashi and then his two colleagues, Legislator Johnson and Legislator Pierce, to both share their thoughts. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. As was mentioned, this is the culmination of a long process. It nominally begins when we are handed from the county executive the budget books, the big heavy books. That's why this is a little bit more of a fun event, because we don't have to carry those big heavy books with us. But in truth, it's a process that goes throughout the year. We plan and forecast for these moments well in advance of actually getting them. I want to thank the county executive for, again, presenting a budget that was fiscally sound, a balanced budget, and a budget in the minds of our external auditors, a budget that places us in the best financial position we've been in over 30 years. And I think that's reflected in the rating agencies' ratings of Westchester County. We did go through our process. It meant going through every committee. An important part of that process was the public hearings and public input sessions, where so many of you came out. We thank everybody that came out and made the case for the things they found important. At the end of the day, we did make additions and deletions to the budget, but they were relatively small in the grand scheme of things because, again, it was a fiscally sound budget. One of the areas that was mentioned earlier was a commitment to increasing child care. We recognized that there was an area where so many people were in need, and the ability to provide for those people, understanding that these are difficult financial times for everybody, but to provide for that need while keeping our operating budget flat for, how many years in a row has it been?
Flat for 2 years, reduced for the 4 prior.
6 total, reduced, and now flat. It really is an accomplishment, and I love taking credit for it, but in truth, and very obviously, it is the work of a whole lot of people, including Joan McDonald. Thank you, Joan, for your work, Larry Sewell, Karen Hablow, and all the commissioners. And I want to echo the thanks to my colleagues and Budget Chair Jewel Williams-Johnson for the work that she did in managing that process, and all my colleagues, including Erica Pierce, who was dutifully at every meeting and asking all the questions. But again, it is a real privilege and an honor to be a part of this process. Thank you, County Executive, again.
Thank you. Legislator Johnson.
Thank you both. I'll start in reverse from what I said on Monday evening when we passed the budget with my thanks. I can't emphasize enough how much my colleagues and I thank all of the commissioners, all of the department heads for really buckling down and submitting the best budget for their department considering the bottom line and the times. I'll repeat, but doesn't mean that the thanks aren't just as deep to Joan McDonnell and Larry Soul, who always gives us fair, balanced, and expert advice. Our auditors, I'll give a shout out to our
CBAC.
Thank you, Citizens Budget Advisory Board. And my colleagues. We enter budget season late fall, and we wind up here. And the collaboration between the administration and the legislature is something that I only know as well, and I appreciate these times. I know, as many of you know, I succeeded my mom, and she has told me war stories. But this has been great. I'll reiterate the words, fiscally sound, balanced budget, and an on-time budget. And it's because of that collaboration, and it's because of the care that we each have for our constituency and for the betterment of Westchester County. And I want to thank County Executive, AKA Congressman-elect Latimer, your last one. And 6 straight row without increase to property taxes. And I think you can be more than proud of that and this budget, despite the unknown in the short future. This sets us up well. As the chairman said, the auditors even commented that we're in the best shape fiscally that we've been in years, and it's because of not only the collaboration, but because of the county executive and his determination and his goals when he started in this seat, as well as our deputy county executive, Ken Jenkins. And we are modeled well to go in and face whatever may come. I also want to thank you for reviewing these numbers as it pertains to the special district. That was so important. We've heard comments, particularly since Monday, but it's important to know who and how is affected by these numbers. So thank you for that. My last comment is to reiterate what the chairman said, in that we thank all of you, all of the residents of Westchester County who came to our 2 public input sessions and our public hearing last week. Do not think it does not matter. The advocacy and the compassion and just where everyone's concerns are, we take it very, very seriously. And we may not quite look forward to it, but we do understand the importance of having that input, why they're called public input sessions, and it does, we relate to it, and it does impact our decisions. Of note is keeping the child care scholarship, and we heard some very heartfelt stories and understand. And not only do we understand as women, as part of a family, but what people miss a lot is that providing and supplementing childcare only goes to helping our economy move along smoothly. So, you know, it's a win-win, and it's a win-win that we're extremely proud of. Again, thank you very much. Super proud to shepherd this process, and I look forward to what unfolds with the approval of this budget and how it continues to help the residents of Westchester County. Thank you.
Me too. Well, thank you. And thank you again to our wonderful budget chair. As a member of her committee, I can say that she really kept us on the straight and narrow. I wasn't expecting to speak today. I came in particular because this was County Executive Latimer's last budget, and swam down here from the north, that area that is not benefited by any of these special districts. I too appreciated your analysis and description of how the special districts work. I am the chair of Public Works and Transportation, so I oversee a lot of the items that go into making those special districts. And as another reminder, if the infrastructure that keeps those special districts running is not maintained, we have a whole other slew of problems, which are have financial ramifications as well as quality of life ramifications. Given the weather, I found it ironic that the one thing we didn't note in talking about one of the impacts of these 6 years of fabulous budgets is our rainy day fund. And when we talk about being well-positioned for whatever may be ahead, the resuscitation of that fund from what was, I don't remember what the exact number was, but roughly $16 million to where it is today. It is truly our safety net, and so it's very important. Again, my gratitude, as mentioned from everybody else, to everybody who works on this budget. It comes to us in the fall, but it goes for months and months before it even gets to us. I'm happy to be a small part of this, and I'm very grateful for the great depth and the great breadth of all that this county does for its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. I'd ask my colleagues to join me here as we sign the budget. I have before me an Act number 240 of 2024, which outlines all of the elements of the county budget, which we've just discussed, and it gives the graphic and chart-oriented information signed and approved by the various committees, and then as certified by Rose Vinci, who's the Deputy Clerk of the County Board, that this passed the Board of Legislators on the 9th day of December. So on this, the 11th day of December, with my signature, based on the power vested in me by you, the voters of Westchester County, I now sign this into law, and we now have a budget for 2025. I'd like to provide each one of the ceremonial pens to the Chair of the Board of Legislators, to the Chair of the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, and to a Legislative Chair. You cared enough to come. You get a pen. I also have a pen from my friend and colleague, Ken Jenkins. No one has been more a part of these decisions over the last 7 years than Ken Jenkins has. Thank you, my friend. I guess our budget for pens is still not yet expired, so I have a pen also for Larry Sewell for his outstanding work, and one for Joan McDonald as our Director of Operations. Larry, thank you. Joan, thank you. Your superior work is how we've gotten to this point. I'm going to invite my friends to sit. I'm going to make a few final comments, and then we'll be on our way. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you again. It was an incredibly long time ago, 33 years ago, when I was a county legislator-elect. I'd been elected in early November of 1991, and I sat in the Board of Legislators chambers in the gallery as one of the 3 or 4 new members coming in to watch the deliberation of that board on the 1992 county budget. It seems incredible, 33 years. The next year, I sat as a member of the board, and it was still a very mystical process to try to figure out how all of these things fit together. I had 1,000 questions, and I was less one to speak until I knew that I could understand things. So I kept a fairly close control of my commentary and began the process of learning about these. A number of years later, in 1998, as the chairman of the Board of Legislators, I had the opportunity to do exactly what Vedat did here today, complete the deliberations of the board, shape and direct it, making sure that those 16 colleagues of mine had the opportunity to impact and bring their ideas and to make the adjustments necessary. We negotiated it with the administration of Andy Spano in those days, and we came to closure. And 3 of those 4 years, we cut property taxes during my 4 years as chair of the Board of Legislators. When I left in that position, a few years after that, I left to go off to Albany, returning after 13 years to this position. And I think now, as I look at the last 3 weeks of my administration as county executive, I'll have comments to make and a farewell address coming up in a few weeks, so I won't get too much ahead of myself. I realize what a journey it is for me personally to go from that very first budget where I knew almost nothing of what was happening as a member-elect to exactly where we are now. I, once again, a member-elect in another body, and I've got a lot to learn in that body, and I recognize that it will take time. I don't have 33 years in the next assignment that's coming up. But I do think one thing is important, and I think this is the overarching situation to me. This budget is arguably the most important thing that we do as a government, because it's what you fund and what you're committed to that actually happens in the real world. When we signed a budget and then we went on to rebuild Memorial Field, when we signed a budget and we went on to fix the lighthouse at Kingsland Point Park, or we went on to put Spring Ridge pools back into operation and services so the kids can go swimming, and on and on and on. Not just the capital things that we did, the electric vehicle charging stations, electrification of the bus system. All of these different decisions came out of the county budget. Now, I've been involved for a long time in public office. I know when I meet with groups of people, the first question they ask is, what did you do to my taxes? Are my taxes going up? So I can tell them honestly, no, your general fund balance, your taxes are not going up. But what's more importantly is that we are defending the concept of democratic, small d, democracy government in the way we go about doing our business. These things are not imposed by one person. They're the process of deliberation. Many people have hands in what the product is, and there's discussion and debate. And there's been open opportunity for you to come to the administration and then to the Board of Legislators to influence the way you think a budget should be shaped. And this budget has been changed from the original iteration of it by that public input. That is exactly what we strive for at every level of government. The county level of government is not the state and it's not the federal government. I've served at the state and I'm about to find out what the federal government is like. But I hold this up as an exemplar of what we were told in school and that we've become to believe does not exist, which is a government that actually accomplishes things, believes in certain principles, and can fairly implement those ideas. When I became county executive 7 years ago, right about this time, we were doing our preparations for the new administration. I had ideas, and some of them I'd spoken about on the campaign trail, and some of them I just kept to myself. We came into office. We did not fire everybody who was in a position of authority. We saw talented people who had served under the prior administration, and we kept a larger percentage, 2/3 to 3/4 of the people that were leading departments, because we understood that the mission was to provide a good government. We saw that we had union contracts that were open, in one case for 7 years. We saw that we had a diminishing reserve fund. We saw that we had questions being peppered to us by the rating agencies. We saw that we had public works that had been neglected over an extended period of time that needed repair. We didn't see that we would have a pandemic that would change everything. All of those things have happened over these years. We proved, not any one of us, not just me alone, we proved that reasonable people who work hard, who listen, who make mistakes, we try to catch them, we try to correct them, but that we can govern. And through the cynicism of the moment, and the cynicism is thick, I hear it, I see it, I feel it. People don't believe. They believe that everybody's in it for themselves. They're only in it for the money. That's why I never took one dime more of salary to this day from the salary that I had the first day I came into office. And I recognize that it's not a competitive salary. We'll talk about that in another day. But I did that for a reason. I did it for the same reason why I made sure that we took the names of elected officials, and primarily the county executive, off of every sign. You do not drive into Westchester and see the name of the county executive on a sign. You haven't for 7 years. You haven't seen the county executive riding with an entourage of people being driven everywhere he goes by a member of our police force to show up and to become an impressive presence when he walks in the door. I walk in the door the same way I did when I was a city councilman 30-some-odd years ago, and I had none of those things at my fingertips. And I believe that there is a limit that people should have executive power, because no one is capable of handling all the power that can come in a situation like that. So you limit it. And I asked for, and the board agreed to, limit the terms of a county executive to 2 terms, 8 years at a maximum, that there'd be time for someone new to come in. All of those things we did because we believe in this democracy. We believe in this government. This budget is a manifestation of it. And this is the last one that I have the responsibility for. I feel a little guilty that other people will have to administer the budget and make it all fit together. And there are things that could happen outside of the county's control that could change these presumptions. Decisions yet to be made in Washington. Decisions yet to be made in Albany. Things that happen in the worldwide economy that none of us can control. Decisions that are thrust upon us because of things that we can't anticipate, like a pandemic. But we're reasonable people. We're people that try to do what we think is right as we see the right. We work together across our differences. We have different demographics. We have different ethnic backgrounds. We have different life stories. But we work across those differences to try to find a way, in this particular case, to run this county to the best of the ability. I inherited this county because my mother, who was born here, and my father, who moved from Brooklyn after World War II and came here to find work, because they met each other and they decided to have a family, and I'm the product of that coupling. I owe a debt of gratitude to Westchester County. This is how you pay that debt of gratitude. You govern it well. You look at its people in all of their diversity, and you care about them whether they look like you or not. And you come up with solutions and answers for people who are in this kind of a status versus people that are in that kind of a status. And you don't rule these people out and rule these people in. You include them all in. The story of today in signing this budget is these things are possible if you want them to be true. We want them to be true. I'm George Latimer, County Executive. Thank you. We'll speak to you soon.